Have you ever imagined having to give up something you love more than anything in life for a greater promise? Something so precious that it seems impossible to let go of. Today we will delve into the story of Anna, a woman who faced pain, humiliation, and, in an act of unshakable faith, gave her son to God. Hannah lived in a time when motherhood was seen as a blessing and barrenness as a curse. She suffered not only from childlessness, but also from the constant taunts of Peninnah, her husband Elkanah's other wife. In the midst of despair, Anna did something that would change her life forever. She went to the temple and, with tears in her eyes, made a promise to God. If he gave her a son, she would give him up to serve him. What happened next is one of the most moving and inspiring stories in the Bible, a journey of faith, sacrifice, and trust that makes us reflect on what we are willing to give to God in our lives. If you like stories that touch the heart and bring profound lessons, leave your like below and subscribe to the channel to follow every detail of this incredible narrative. Shall we begin? To understand the depth of Hannah's story, we need to go back in time and delve into the historical and biblical context in which she lived. Anna was a woman from ancient Israel, at a time when society was deeply patriarchal and female identity was closely linked to motherhood. Being a mother was not just a matter of personal fulfillment, it was a sign of divine blessing, a social status, and above all, a cultural expectation. Women who could not have children were often seen as cursed, as if they carried the weight of some sin or failure before God. Imagine the burden Hannah carried. In addition to dealing with the pain of barrenness, she was constantly humiliated by Peninnah, her husband Elkanah's other wife. Peninnah had children, and this was used as a weapon to diminish Hannah, to remind her of her inferiority. Society at the time did not offer space for women like Hannah. They were judged, marginalized, and often forgotten. But it is precisely in this scenario of pain and oppression that Anna's story gains strength, because it was in the midst of this struggle that she found the courage to seek something greater. Anna did not conform to the judgment of men. She sought God, and that is when the story begins to change. Motherhood in that context was more than a desire. It was a matter of emotional and spiritual survival. And Anna was about to show that even when everything seems lost, faith can open paths that no one imagined. Hannah's pain was deep, constant, and multifaceted. She suffered not only from being unable to have children, she bore the burden of a society that viewed barrenness as a curse, a personal failing. But Hannah's suffering went beyond that. In her own home, she was the target of cruel taunts from Peninnah, her husband Elkanah's other wife. Peninnah had children, and that was reason enough for her to feel superior. Every day, Hannah was reminded of her inferiority. Peninnah's words were like knives, cutting into her self-esteem and feeding a feeling of inadequacy that ate away at her insides. Imagine what it was like to live like that, waking up every day knowing that you would be humiliated, that your tears would be ignored, that your pain would be minimized. Elkanah, though he loved Hannah, did not fully understand her anguish. He tried to comfort her, saying, "Hannah, why are you weeping? Why are you not eating? Why are you sad? Am I not better to you than 10 sons?" But these words, though well-intentioned, were not enough. Hannah's pain was greater than any human consolation. She lived in an endless cycle of sadness, shame, and loneliness. But even in the midst of this struggle, Hannah did not lose hope. She knew that somewhere there was a God who heard the cries of the afflicted. And it was this faith, however small, that led her to make a decision that would change her life forever. In the midst of the despair that consumed her soul, Anna made a decision that would change not only her life, but also the course of history. She went to the temple. It was no ordinary visit, nor a simple routine prayer. It was a moment of total surrender, of despair transformed into faith. Anna approached the sanctuary with a broken heart, tears streaming down her face, words stuck in her throat. She did not pray out loud, as was the custom at the time. Instead, her prayer was a broken whisper, an intimate conversation with God. Her lips moved, but hardly any sound came out. The pain was so great that words could not express all that she felt. In her anguish, Hannah made a bold promise. Lord Almighty, if you will look on the affliction of your servant and remember me and not forget your servant, but will give her a son, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life. Imagine the intensity of that moment. Hannah was willing to give up her greatest dream of life, motherhood, if God would grant her request. She did not want a child just for herself. She wanted a child who belonged to God, who would be consecrated to his service. The scene was so emotional that the priest Eli, watching her, thought she was drunk. But Hannah was not drunk on wine. She was drunk on pain, on faith, on hope. And in that moment in the temple, she gave up everything she had, her dream, her pain, her future, and God was about to answer. God heard Hannah's cry. He saw her tears, heard her silent prayer, and recognized the sincerity of her heart. The divine answer was not long in coming. Hannah became pregnant. After years of sterility, humiliation, and pain, she finally felt life grow within her. Imagine the whirlwind of emotions she must have experienced. Joy, relief, gratitude, but also a deep sense of responsibility. She had made a promise to God, and she knew that this child was not just hers. It was a divine gift, a direct response to her faith and devotion. When Samuel was born, Hannah saw him not just as a son, but as a symbol of God's power. She gave him a name that carried deep meaning, Samuel, which means God has heard. Every time she said the boy's name, it was a reminder that even in her darkest hour, God was there, listening, acting, fulfilling his promises. Hannah did not forget her promise. She knew that Samuel belonged to God, and that one day she would have to give him up. But for now, she enjoyed every moment with her son, nursing him, caring for him, and preparing for the sacrifice that was to come. God's answer to Hannah's prayer was not just a miracle, it was proof that when we trust him, even the impossible can happen. The moment that Hannah had been waiting for and at the same time fearing finally arrived. After weaning Samuel, she knew it was time to fulfill her promise. Imagine what was going through this mother's heart. For years, she had dreamed of having a son, and now, after so much waiting, she had to give him up. Hannah was not just handing over a child, she was handing over the boy who had been her reason for living, her answer to prayer, her miracle. With a heavy heart but full of faith, she prepared Samuel for the journey that lay ahead. Together, they walked to the temple at Shiloh, where the priest Eli served. Hannah took with her not only Samuel, but also offerings and sacrifices as a sign of gratitude and devotion. When she gave Samuel to Eli, she said, "For this child I prayed, and the Lord has granted me my petition that I asked of him. Therefore I also have given him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he will be the Lord's." These words carried a mixture of pain and faith. Hannah knew that Samuel was no longer just her son. He belonged to God. Hannah's decision was not an easy one. Each step toward the temple must have been a struggle between a mother's love and her devotion to God. But she chose to trust. And in doing so, Hannah left us a legacy of faith and sacrifice that resonates to this day. Hannah was not just a woman of promise. She was a woman of unshakable faith. Even after delivering Samuel to the temple, she did not despair or question God's plan. Instead, she trusted. Hannah believed that her son was in good hands, not just in the hands of Eli the priest, but in the hands of God himself. And that trust led to one of the most powerful moments of her life, Hannah's song. In 1 Samuel 2:1-10, she expresses her gratitude and praise to God in words that resonate to this day. She says, "My heart rejoices in the Lord. In the Lord my horn is exalted. My mouth laughs at my enemies because I rejoice in your salvation. There is none holy like the Lord, for there is none besides thee, and there is no rock like our God." This song is not merely a hymn of gratitude, it is a testimony to the greatness of God. Hannah recognizes that he is the one who exalts the humble, who strengthens the weak, and who fulfills his promises. Her words show a faith that goes beyond circumstances, a devotion that does not depend on easy answers. Hannah teaches us that even when we give up what we love most, we can trust that God is in control. It is this faith that transforms sacrifices into celebrations, pain into praise, and human stories into eternal legacies. Hannah's sacrifice was not in vain. Samuel, the son she gave to God, grew up in the temple under the care of Eli and became one of the greatest prophets in the history of Israel. From an early age, Samuel demonstrated an unusual spiritual sensitivity. The Bible says that he grew before the Lord, and it was not long before God began to speak directly to him. In a time when the word of the Lord was rare and visions were infrequent, Samuel stood out as a direct channel of the divine voice. He not only heard God, but he also became a leader who united the nation of Israel at critical times. Samuel was responsible for anointing the first two kings of Israel, Saul and David, and for guiding the people back to God's ways. His life was a reflection of the greater purpose behind Hannah's sacrifice. When she delivered Samuel to the temple, she was not just fulfilling a promise. She was participating in a divine plan that would impact generations. Samuel was not just a son, he was an instrument in God's hands, a prophet who would change the course of history. Hannah could not see the whole future at that moment, but her faith allowed God to use her sacrifice for something much greater. And that is how God works. He takes our pain, our sacrifices, and transforms them into eternal purposes. Hannah's story is not just a biblical account, it is a mirror that reflects our own struggles, fears, and decisions. How often do we find ourselves in situations where it seems that God is silent, where our prayers are not answered in the time we expect? Hannah teaches us that true faith does not depend on immediate answers, but on the confidence that God is in control, even when we do not understand his plans. She shows us that sacrifice, however painful, can be an act of worship, a way of saying, God, I trust you more than my own dreams. And that's where Hannah's story challenges us. What would you be willing to give to God today? Maybe it's not a child like Hannah's, but it could be a relationship, a dream, a career, or even control over your own life. Surrendering something to God doesn't mean abandoning it. It means trusting him to do something greater than you could ever imagine. Hannah didn't know that Samuel would become one of Israel's greatest prophets, but she trusted. What about you? What is God asking you to surrender to him? Hannah's story reminds us that when we give up what we love, we are not losing it. We are allowing God to transform our sacrifice into an eternal legacy. Hannah's story doesn't end at the temple where she handed Samuel over. It continues to echo to this day as a powerful reminder that when we trust God, he turns our pain into greater purpose. Hannah couldn't see the future, but she believed that God was faithful, and he was. Samuel became a prophet, a leader, an instrument in God's hands, and it all began with the faith of a woman who decided to trust, even when everything seemed impossible. This story challenges us to look at our own lives and ask, where are we holding on too tightly? What do we need to give to God so he can act? Hannah teaches us that sacrifice is not the end. It is the beginning of something greater. So today, I want to invite you to reflect. What do you need to place in God's hands? And if this story touched your heart, leave a like below. This really helps the channel grow and reach more people. Don't forget to subscribe to our upcoming videos where we'll explore more inspiring stories like this one. And please share this video with someone who needs to hear this message today. Because just like Hannah, we can all find hope when we trust in God. Until next time.